What an episode. Like, I don't know. I watched this with the premiere together and I couldn't wait for you guys to watch it and I couldn't wait for the world to watch it because it's just an incredible episode. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I'm sad.
Yeah.
I
I
think
don't
that seems
know.
like the consensus.
I'm just so sad.
I was devastated by the end. Like I really enjoyed the episode. I was having a little problem with the teens because I wasn't sure where we were going. And then I was like, Sabrina, just let them be teenagers and have
I
some
was
fun.
so frustrated though, because like, didn't warning, I'm getting back into the Jordan and Sarah of it all. Um, didn't he was like, I'm just trying to give you space, and she's like, you don't need to give me space. And I was like, girl, what did you just say to him at his birthday party? Isn't that what we were? I was so confused with her. And then by the end of the episode, she was like, I don't know. They were like, she was like fighting for his honor, which was kind of cute. And he was wearing her flannel and that freaking bully. I was like, can you shut up? Like, what? They're having fun. But I was glad that they left. That was good. I just got way ahead of everything. But
No, I
You're
feel like
fine.
this is such an unfamiliar episode. It's good to start with familiar territory. Um, yeah, I agree. I feel like that was I'm very happy with where the teens went in that story because it was so fun. And I said last week, I teased that seeing all four of those characters together always makes for such a good time, and that's exactly what we got. Um, Maybe they had to force it a little quickly to get Sarah and Jordan back on the same page. But can I just say, I thought she was very, very mean to him at the start when she just like ran out on him when he was trying to. Thought I know he was having that embarrassing moment, but it was just like that's the like Reed said, that's the exact opposite of the messages she's been giving him. Sometimes she's like, let's be friends. Other times she's like, she needs space. Clearly that was I need space moment, and then she followed that up with, you don't need to give me space. And I'm like,
it's frustrating. Like, I can't really fault the character because I don't know, that kind of rings true. Like, teenagers are kind of wishy-washy. They change their minds a lot, but I'm like, and this is what I would have said last week had I been on the pod, is just like, I wish the writers, the writing would take the character in a different direction. I don't think these two characters always need to be the center of each other's universe or like the conflict. I don't know. I'm hoping for something a little bit different because I feel like we keep getting the same conversation between them in like different fonts.
that's a good way
Like
of putting it.
I don't know which one to like believe anymore. And then it makes me lose interest. And I feel like for me, the stake in those characters plummets when I'm like, I feel like we had that conversation before, and it's just in reverse now.
I
I don't know.
think
Is that unfair?
no, I think so. What you said about how they don't need to be the center of each other's universes, I feel like that's how they want Sarah to feel. But then she also really wants to hang out with Jordan. Like she wants to be able to like hang out with
Yeah.
Natalie and not have to bring him along. But then like if he's around, she wants him to be around. And I was like, would a teenager be able to explain that feeling? Probably not, because adults can't even explain that feeling. But I wish it was better executed because I think her complicated emotions around what she wants from Jordan is realistic. It's just coming off like whiplash. I was actually very happy that when he came to the party, she didn't immediately assume he followed her
Yeah.
because typically with their dynamic, that's what would have happened. And then they would have gotten prickly in the middle of the party, and then he would have gotten his feelings hurt, and then she would have said something mean, and then Natalie would have had to tell her that like he probably just arrived here not knowing that you were here or something. I'm glad we completely avoided that entire situation, and they were able to have another nice conversation about her wanting to be friends with him, which is something that she's never wanted from her exes before. And I think this time Jordan really was just trying to be a friend. There was nothing like
He was
romantic.
like, I didn't bring you a gift from Malaysia this time.
Yeah. Well, even when he was asking after her in the diner, he really was, even though it was awkward, was just trying to ask her what she was up to, which is what a friend would ask. Like it wasn't him trying to slide himself into whatever she was doing with Natalie. He kind of just wanted to talk to her. Maybe after this whole we bonded over potentially fake beer bong. Not really sure what was in those cups because I think she said something about water, but who knows? Um, Maybe we've gotten to a point where we can be besties. I kind of didn't want them to be quite besties just yet, even though like the energy.
It's quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
very quick. But I will say that scene between the two of them where they like laughed before they played the game with the bullies, that was my favorite scene between the two of them since season one. And you saw how like those two actors have such great chemistry together, regardless of what dynamic they're in. And that was probably arguably maybe my favorite scene of them ever. Season one made them so fresh, fun, and like lovable. I was so invested in the relationship, and season two did the opposite. I was worried that season three was going down the same route. But if we have more scenes like this, I don't care what the relationship is, as long as they just get on with each other. But I do agree, it was like whiplash going from the last episode into this one. It was very, very quick.
I feel like they don't need to talk about whatever their relationship is anymore. Just be in it. Do something else.
Yeah.
Like I can't handle any more conversations about what they are to each other. Like, we got it. You figured it out. I think you're good now for a few more episodes.
Well, especially because it's so cute. Like, I did love that he was in her flannel, and she was such a rubber girl, right? She's like this petite thing, but she's very much like, what? If you step to her friends. And
that's the Sarah I want to see.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah, hopefully she sticks around and we aren't given whiplash in episode 4. I also like that John was trying to be like a good boyfriend, but also having weirdness with his ex, who I'm not sure why she's decided she wants to get back with him now. But that whole, I don't love this for John, but I like seeing John interact with someone who's not really his friend, but like saying goodbye to his old life while protecting his new life, and then ditching homegirl when he was like, you know what, this doesn't service me. And I love how much this show is like, no, friends can go above and beyond for you. It doesn't have to be romantic. Because when she was like, oh, but you traveled all the way to Metropolis for me, and he was like, yeah, because we're friends. I wanted to see you. Like, I love that. I love that it didn't have to be an underlying, oh, I still secretly like you, and I only came all the way over here because I wanted to see if there was something between us. He's like, no, we're friends. I wanted to hang out. I would come all the way to Metropolis to see my friend.
Yeah, there was an innocence to that, which was nice. And I think that was, John sometimes gets like lost in everyone else's story. And I'm glad he kind of had this moment. I don't know where they're going with that, because he was completely caught off guard. And Eliza is quite an important character to the show, because she was involved in the first season off screen. She was his first girlfriend, and then she broke up with him, and she made him hate Smallville even more. So it's an interesting choice to bring her back now, let alone cast her. So I don't know whether we'll see her again, if this will play into his relationship with Candace, who practically doesn't exist to the show. So I don't know what the stakes are there. But either way, I'm happy to see John get some storylines, and human storylines, that not get lost in the midst of all the superhero stuff going on. Again, Michael Bishop, great performance. He's really, really made himself at home on the show very, very quickly. But yeah, I like seeing the four of them together, because there's less conversations between Jordan and Sarah, more dynamics between like Sarah and Natalie, Sarah getting to be badass, and then Jonathan getting some spotlight as well. It was an interesting balancing that with the seriousness of the episode. I think this is the most different episode Superman and Lois has ever done. And it was quite jarring going at the longer each storyline went on. The Lois one got more serious and this one got more fun. But I think maybe they just needed that little bit of levity, and it worked in the long run.
Can we talk about Lois?
Yeah.
Rip the Band-Aid off.
Did we have to rip the Band-Aid off? Because like I was like, I struggled to live tweet afterwards. Like, I assumed it was going to be cancer, and yet I still felt punched in the gut when she finally said it. And I think, a credit to Bitsie Tulloch's performance. Like, it was heart-wrenching seeing her give up a piece of herself to help the judge come off the ledge when she was going to commit suicide. But also seeing Clark up there, hearing for the first time that his wife has an aggressive form of cancer, or cancer period, but also an aggressive form of cancer, and having to fly there. He's just hovering, listening.
And in that moment, like, he can't go to her, right?
Yeah.
He's in that moment Superman. Oh, so heart-wrenching.
I think that was probably one of the best performances either one of them have given, because obviously Bitsie was so powerful and Tyler was so subtle, and just the two of them together, and then that hug with the music and the slow-mo camera zoom, such a beautiful moment, and it was so like heart-wrenching. But I feel like there were 3 particular standout moments of the episode. The opening montage where like Lois got her results and it was not a single word of dialogue was said, and Bitsie just looked at the camera before the logo came on. Incredible. You knew like that was like HBO drama right there. Just human drama that made you really feel something. Of course, the scene where Lois talked to the judge off the ledge, quite literally, while Clark watched. But my God, the final scene of the episode,
People.
when I first watched that on a Friday night, I sat in darkness for a long time after that and just processed that. Like, what a
You
moment.
know, when they cut the dialogue audio
Mm-hmm.
and they slow it down a little bit, no matter how many times I see a scene like that on television, it hits every time.
Mm-hmm.
It just is a wallop. I don't even know if that's a word, but
It is.
Yeah.
it just punches you right in the gut and you feel it. And my God, if there are the biggest Bitsie stands in the world, it's the three of us, I think.
Mm.
Yeah.
Like that, the Emmys, wake up.
Yes, she's like, you see them at the table and you just know. It's like your stomach just drops along with it, and the boys know. And she's sitting there, and I was like, Mom's about to say something that is going to be like world changing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's exactly what happened. And it's just, I love the effect of taking dialogue out, right? And just
Mhm.
letting it be like the instrumental and
Because
the
we
face
know, we
work,
know.
you know. And I think it's because it also feels that way when you're given bad news, right? Like if you hear like with students stuff, but you're there but not there.
The
And
world
so
stops. It feels like an out of body experience. Yeah.
and then so to see like the boys here and then immediately go hug their mom. And I
Mm-hmm.
was like, because that's the reaction you would have. And then Clark trying to keep it together, but clearly falling apart to the
Yeah.
side. And I was like, so y'all gonna hurt us this season. Like it's just truly going to be like, should I have tissues beside me? Because I
Yeah.
feel like I'm gonna need them.
I've
Yeah.
never seen like, well, I guess I have, but like the way that they were able to effectively compose on screen, just that moment where your life changes.
Mm-hmm.
Like after that moment, even though Lois knew and then Clark knew a little bit after she did her processing, in that moment, their lives aren't the same. And the way that they were able to execute that on screen and make us all feel that, even if that's not the exact situation that we've been in. Like, I think we've all had that moment where, like, you're told information or you read something and you're like, so life is different now. And you're like,
Mm-hmm.
it just is like, I don't know where to go from here. Um, yeah, I thought it was really beautiful.
It was. It was. And the fact is, like, from a scripting standpoint, you're not supposed to relay information more than once. So, of course, the fact that they didn't need that dialogue where Lois followed up afterwards. But I, like you guys said, I just think it was so effective that after she said those words to them, I have cancer, they wouldn't have heard anything after that as characters. Everything else would have been drowned out because, like Reed said, their lives were immediately different. And the slow turning down of the dialogue and the slow turning up of the music, just as they got up to hug her, it was just such a powerful scene. And all four of the cast members in that scene were just incredible. And then that final, like, I thought that was probably the most authentic scene in the episode, just that final close up on Lois, just as she put her head against Jonathan, I think. But like Jordan was holding on so tight as well. It was just so beautiful. And like you said, like Emmys, wake up. Um, I I think that's just probably the most powerful scene and perhaps even the superhero genre has ever done. Because the show always tries outside the box things, but just part of you never thought they'd do a storyline like this and to do it so effectively in just a 40-minute period so far. And I know this is not going to, obviously, it would be distasteful to have it as an episode of the week or a subplot. This is going to be the family focused storyline of the season. And I'm excited just for them to raise awareness about this kind of thing because television is such a powerful medium. And I'm not worried about the fact that, it's a comic book show or, it's a superhero show or there's superpowers or a supervillain involved in this. I have no doubt the show will handle this and raise awareness for it expertly. And I have no doubt that Bitsie will continue to deliver phenomenal performances because I tell you, I love everything about the show. But after that episode aired, I cried after that scene. That was just such a powerful scene. And I can't wait to see where it goes next, just from a performance standpoint, from a raising awareness standpoint. It's going to be probably a difficult watch because the show will handle it authentically. But like, if it's anything like that scene, I that will stay with me for a long time. I just thought it was such a beautiful episode, but more than that, such a beautiful scene, that closing moment.
Mm-hmm. I do want to say, though, for those who are going to be tuning in to the rest of the season, because this has been described as the villain of season 3, her diagnosis, and then, of course, having to combat cancer. It's gonna be trying. Like they have been very open and honest about what Lois is going to be going through. So like, take care of yourselves, y'all. Like if it's a lot for you, maybe have someone who watches the show with you tell you what her storyline is going to be in an episode before you decide to watch, because they are leaning full tilt into what it's like watching someone you love go through a fight with cancer. And it is part of Lois's journey. It's not the only thing that she's doing, because just like in real life, you have, like, she's still a mom, like she's still an investigative journalist. She has cancer and she is fighting against that, but her life is not stopping. So it's balancing her fight with what she wants to do, and we are going to see that, and that's going to be very difficult. So like, just take care of yourselves.
Yes.
And I think that's what Superman and Lois is going to do very well. And that, yes, Lois Lane is going to continue reporting and bring down the bad guy of the season and Bruno Mannheim. But on the other front, I think the most effective thing that the show can do is show the little things that a real person battling an illness like this would still have to do, like be a mom, be a wife, go to work every day of the week. I just think the normal things is what Superman and Lois does so well, and I feel like we're going to continue to see that, and that's an important part of the storyline, especially for someone like Lois going through this, to see how it not just impacts her work, how it impacts her fight to take down a bad guy, but how it impacts just her normal everyday life. And I've no doubt the show will like spotlight that beautifully.
And it's going to change all of their worldviews too. Like Clark still has to be Superman and fight the tangible villains. Like the villains that he can see, because like he can't do anything to save Lois, but at the end of the day he still has to, fight Bruno, Onomatopoeia. What are they? Who are they? I don't know. There's a couple now, right?
Yeah.
Or are they the same person? I don't know.
That's a couple.
I think that's the interesting thing, because the premiere kind of showed that Bruno Mannheim was the person in charge, but this episode suggests that maybe he listens to onomatopoeia as the
I
instead.
love that word, by the way. It's so fun.
It's excellent. And it makes total sense, because the villain's powers is that it can literally create sounds that sound like sounds. So like in the comic book, he would snap an arrow and say snap at the same time. So like this is exactly what Superman and Lois version is, more of like a paranormal supernatural version, so that they can affect Superman. So I don't know whether Bruno Mannheim answers to onomatopoeia answers to Bruno Mannheim, but it's such a interesting partnership. And we saw in this episode how she went out and attacked, of course, the mayor, R.I.P. Georgia Dean, how she went out and then attacked Lana as well. Sorry, the former mayor and then the actual mayor. And then now she has history with John Henry Irons. She was the one who killed him. So I feel like we've just scratched the surface with both of those characters, and I'm intrigued to see what role they kind of play in each other's endgame and who's really the boss.
It's going to be interesting, especially because like Bruno's having like this philosophical verbal battle with Superman. I don't know if we're going to continue to have those moments between them. Like Clark is dealing with a lot at home, but also I have to stand here and listen to you tell me how I have failed an entire region of Metropolis. I thought that discussion was interesting, because I was listening to Bruno and I was like, Bruno, what did you want him to do about like things that he has no control over? And I tweeted this too, because I was like, Superman is a first responder. Okay, like you wanted funds for the neighborhood and for the crime to be cleaned up in an effective way. And I was like, it's not his job. It's not what Superman does. We're the global firefighter. I don't expect my local firehouse to clean up the streets. Like, so I just don't see where Bruno was going with that. I mean, I get, being like, you're the world's hero, but you weren't the hero of what my neighborhood needed. I'm the hero. But I was also like, you are resurrecting people from the dead. And you did give someone powers. He's like, you come here and you accuse me. I was like, but you did do it. This is the crime that you committed.
I think that's what's going to make him a very effective villain, because there are holes in his story, but a lot of what he said made sense. His neighborhood needed more, and there was no one willing to give it to him. Maybe he wanted that from Superman, and Superman couldn't give it to him. But at the end of the day, he's going to be highlighted as something of probably a corrupt kind of political figure, because he is whatever the hero his neighborhood needs. But like Sabrina said, at the same time, he's responsible for killing people and bringing them back from the dead and then killing them again. So we don't know what his end goal is here. But I think there's definitely layers to this character. And I've seen a lot of people who are more familiar with the comic book version saying this is one of the best versions of the character they've ever seen. Whereas in the comics, he's more cheesy and one note. So we've got a lot of depth here, which is what Superman and Lois does best. And it was a very powerful scene, the conversation the two of them shared, even if Bruno was quite hypocritical. But like Chad L. Coleman, such presence. Again, he appears in like 2 scenes an episode, and you do not forget those scenes. Love him, love him, love him.
I've never seen anyone dismiss Superman like that, though.
Yeah.
Like, he summoned him there, and then he dismissed him and told him never to come into his home again. I was like, but you called him as like the power of that, where Clark just has to listen. And I like that Bruno got to say what he had to say, even if I don't completely agree with everything that Bruno was talking about. But I'm like, oh, this is an interesting, like, this is how you effectively use a monologue from a villain to a superhero who really can't say, like, the superhero, Clark didn't really say anything, because Bruno's right in the sense that he did not help them. He was not the hero they needed. Like, you can't just respond. Like, it wouldn't behoove Clark to go like, but that's not my job. Like, then you just sound terrible. So he has to stand there and float there and take it. But I do wonder, because we haven't talked about Natalie yet in full capacity with the young man that she was speaking to at the party, which I loved their little cute back and forth, as awkward as it was. It was like true to form. Like, that's exactly how those conversations would go at their age. But I wonder if he's Bruno's son or charge or something, because Sarah did say, but she was specifically talking about the person who was throwing the party. It could be like a Romeo and Juliet situation, but like without all the death. And she wasn't speaking about that young man, but I'm like, but we never call Romeo and Juliet into the plot unless we're going to actually service a Romeo and Juliet-esque plot. And that boy is really into Natalie. I mean, he saw her once in the hallway and was like hoping she'd come back.
That's a good point.
So
you
now
definitely
I wonder.
have to go somewhere with that. But yeah, because like at the end, the Lois and Sarah and the kids' storylines were so like jarringly different, but notice they both ended up in Metropolis at the same time. Like Jordan and Jonathan were in Metropolis at the same time as their parents were, for 2 completely different storylines. It makes you wonder if they are connected after all, because they have to be going somewhere with that. I know Natalie at the end of the day still feels very much lost in this new world, and then that was another beautiful scene to highlight that, because it reminded us of the time she left Metropolis High. But at the same time, I don't think they just brought Mateo into it for no reason, especially since Sarah, or she was like to Sarah, or Sarah was like, there are other people out there, or there are other guys out there. Nah, I don't think this is the last we've seen of him.
Especially because the actor is actually from, like, he played on All American, so it's one of those, we seeded a familiar CW face into a show, and he had a big part in All American for multiple seasons. So it's not like, I don't think this is a one-off.
There's more to it than that.
Intrigued by season 3 of Superman and Lois, and we're only 2 episodes in.
Yeah, incredible episode.
Very much so.